All right, let's talk about how the absolute best students really study. And I'll give you a hint right up front. It has almost nothing to do with being a genius and everything to do with building a system.
You know this feeling, don't you? It's this little fantasy we all have. This hope that learning should just be this smooth, effortless process where knowledge just kind of flows into our brain. It's a really nice thought, but, well, it's a total fantasy. Because neuroscience, the actual science of how our brains wire themselves, it tells a completely different story. And spoiler alert, that story is a whole lot less about elegance and a whole lot more about effort. So if it's not some magic trick, what is it? What are the top students actually doing that sets them apart? That's what we're going to dig into right now. Okay, our first big idea here is a total game changer. We're going to stop talking about talent and start talking about something you can control, your study architecture. Basically, the system you build for learning. The number one habit of the most successful students is, honestly, it's kind of boring. They schedule everything. They decide ahead of time exactly when and where they're going to study. They don't wait to feel motivated. They treat studying like a critical appointment they just can't miss. And when researchers looked at hundreds of med students, a really clear pattern emerged. They were putting in about 3 to 4 hours of really focused work. And here's the kicker. They were doing it consistently, 5 days a week. This isn't about some heroic all-night cram session. It's about building a steady, relentless rhythm. And there's a really cool scientific reason why this works. It's called temporal entrainment. Your brain is a pattern-matching machine, and it actually learns your schedule. So when it's time to study, your focus just shows up, almost like a reflex. You're not fighting for it anymore. It's just biology. Now, this next one might sound a little strange, especially today when everything is about collaboration. But for the kind of deep, focused learning that really sticks, you have to be alone. It's just not optional. And here's why. Think about your focus like it's money in a bank account. Every time your phone buzzes, that's a tax. Every time you glance at a notification, that's a withdrawal. If you're not careful, you can be mentally bankrupt before you even get started. I love this story because it perfectly explains the idea. This guy wasn't some superhero of self-control. He was just smart. He knew that willpower runs out. So instead of trying to fight the temptation, he just removed it. He designed his environment for success. Okay, let's go to our next big section. This is all about working with your brain's natural tendencies instead of constantly fighting against them. Again, this is about biology, not just pure discipline. This concept is so important. Neuroenergetic budgeting. It sounds complicated, but it's simple. As you go through your day, a chemical called adenosine builds up in your brain, and it basically makes it harder and harder to focus. So the best students don't just study when they have a free hour. They study when their brain's energy budget is at its peak. This is a perfect real-world example. A student was studying super late at night trying to cram, and she failed 2 exams. She was putting in the hours, but her brain was basically chemically closed for business. The second she switched to studying earlier in the evening when her brain was still fresh, her grades literally doubled. Same effort, just smarter timing. So we have to completely change how we think about focus. It is not a talent. You're not just born with it or without it. It's a skill. It's a muscle. And the more you practice it with this kind of structured, repetitive work, the stronger it gets. Focus isn't something you find, it's something you build. All right, now for what might be the single most important and maybe the most uncomfortable idea in all of learning science. That feeling of struggle, of difficulty, that's not a sign you're failing. That's the sign that learning is actually working. This slide says it all. Look at the left side. Rereading, highlighting, these things feel good. They feel productive, but they create really weak, flimsy memories. Now look at the right. Testing yourself, trying to explain a concept from scratch, making mistakes. That stuff feels hard. It's a struggle, but that is what actually forges strong, lasting knowledge. There's a name for this, and it's called desirable difficulty. The brain doesn't build muscle when things are easy. The struggle itself is the signal to your brain that says, hey, this is important. Write this down in permanent ink. So yeah, comfort is the absolute enemy of remembering anything. So how do you actually do this? Well, this little mantra is a fantastic guide. First, watch one. That's when you learn the material for the first time. Then do one. You have to actively practice it yourself. But the final step is the most powerful of all. Teach one. The act of trying to explain a concept to someone else forces you to understand it on a completely different level. It's the ultimate test.
Okay, so we've got the structure, we understand the biology, and we know we have to embrace the struggle. But what powers this whole system? What keeps you going? That's our final crucial piece of the puzzle.
I mean, seriously, think about it. This is tough. Day in and day out, you're doing hard, focused work all by yourself. What on earth could possibly motivate someone to keep that up for years? It's got to be something more than just good habits. And there it is, the answer. For the truly elite performers, the fuel wasn't just caffeine or discipline. It was narrative. It was purpose. They were driven by a powerful story about who they were becoming. The doctor who could save lives, the engineer who could build something amazing, the person who could change their family's future. So here it is. This is the entire blueprint. It's a system, not a secret. It's about having a regular time, in solitude with zero distractions. It's about actively learning, testing yourself, teaching others, and deliberately struggling. But the thing that ties it all together, the thing that makes it all possible, is anchoring all that hard work to a deep, meaningful purpose. So in the end, the best students aren't some different species. They're not necessarily smarter. They are simply obedient to the rules of how the human brain actually learns. And that really just leaves one question for all of us to think about.